Now you might be asking yourself, what is it that had made me sin in the first place? And how was it that I intended to abrogate it from my life? Well, if you recall from Act 2, I had described an event in which I had tried to abstain from self-pollution through the aid of singing the old hymns out of this hymnal book that I bought, back in July or August of last year, something like that. And had basically realized very shortly that that hymnal was indeed a Catholic hymnal. And very shortly after that, after having ejaculated because of that, I realized that Catholicism had begat sex perversion and had very quickly gotten rid of that hymnal along with a catechism so that I might not be able to lust as much as I was. I had still had in my possession 2 Catholic Bibles, one of which being a paperback that my uncle and aunt, my godparents, had given me, and the second being a hardback that I had procured from Amazon, which was indeed very small, almost like a pocket size. In one of my, I suppose, frenzies of unhauling books, I had decided to get rid of one of these, but I was fairly hesitant at first because it had costed quite a bit of money, and I had just said, it's going to make you lust more. Why is it that you want it around? It'll just lust more. And so I'd gotten rid of the hardback Catholic Bible while still holding on to the paperback, because obviously my aunt and uncle had given it me and it had sentimental value, even though it is indeed an object of lust. And wouldn't you know it, my lust was pretty much cut in half once I did hand in that Catholic Bible to the bargain book world. And I decided to abstain for about 10 days, another 10 days, because of it. From about the 14th of May to the 24th of May. This is when I had been, I suppose, uploaded parts 1 and 2. It's when I was doing this. And all the while, I decided to listen to Johnny Keen's videos as I slept, because I found them not only very comforting, but very insightful as well, as to how just a normal Christian should live. And I tried very much to replicate that in my own life and such. And so I would listen to his videos as I slept. And this, evidently, with myself getting rid of the Catholic Bible and with myself wanting to leave this rotten community, this God-forsaken community, I began to no longer rise early in the mornings, because the main reason why I would rise early, as you know, was mainly to self-pollute, along with walking and such, but it was mainly for the purposes of self-pollution. And so I stopped doing that for a little while. And though I did feel very good at not having the need to self-pollute, I had still very much wanted to rise early, as to be able to get more done in terms of reading or writing or whatever. And so I was at a loss in that regard. And as I was abstaining for these 10 days, there was a continual onslaught of lust that I had experienced whilst in public, because there were many instances in which women who were very heavy-set and such had passed by in whichever part of the city, and basically had sparked within me that urge to want to lust again, and it was just so awful. I was with my family on those occasions, so the situation was all the more awkward and just horrible. But somehow I was able to resist, and I'm very thankful to the Lord for that. And during this time too, something else had happened within the community that did, in fact, elicit a little bit of anger within me. That being Betty's belly. I had talked about her in the previous act, and how she was very self-aware about this whole thing, and how it was basically she was catering to their needs and such, and how she didn't really want any part of this. She basically acknowledged Joel C., who was ever present in the comment section of every single user's videos. She acknowledged him as a real person. The second time in the history of this community in which that non-entity was recognized as a real person. The first being with Marina Fuentes. And I could go into a second rebuke of that fellow, but I really don't want to, because it would be pointless. The non-entity would just continue to be recognized by more and more people as a real person, and there would be even more worshipping of the beast, and really there's nothing I can do to stop its influence throughout this whole community, because it's going to be gone anyway within the next 5 months, so what's the point in contributing to the savior of any of these lost peoples, because they're going to remain lost until the very last days of this community's existence. And it's very likely that once this whole thing does in fact end, they will continue on in their wicked ways and continue to want to lust after and fornicate with these people, and will just continue to worship this proverbial beast, even if it doesn't exist or not. So I will not give a second rebuke of Joel C. here. And also during the time of my abstinence, something else had occurred, which basically confirmed my assumptions that OnlyFans will indeed greatly contribute to the death of this community, and will most likely be the root cause of its collapse, if not the Lord our God. In that Marina Fuentes' channel, shortly after she had descended into the disturbing and just generally concerning types of videos, her channel had been deleted. Now, whether this was done because she had violated some or another, I suppose, term of YouTube and such, or whether it was because, I don't know, she had lost interest and such, I'm not entirely sure. But I would like to assume that it was mainly because she had thought all of this mess to be rather pointless, and had thought to herself, OnlyFans is a steady form of income, and I could perhaps support myself and whatever child I had within the past 3 or 4 years from initially putting these videos up for the rest of my days, or at least for a great while. So what's the need for YouTube anymore? And so she just decided to delete her account. I'm not entirely sure how that is, but I'm pretty sure it's for that reason that she decided to remove herself entirely from YouTube. And more channels are going to do that. More and more channels have done that. And more channels have been shunted exclusively into their OnlyFans accounts, and will likely carry on with their iniquity on that platform. For the love of money is the root of all evil. And, well, there are some people that are stupid enough to pay for pornography, but there are quite a great many that are not. So there's that. And shortly after I had realized that Marina had deleted her account, Mother herself, yes, my mother, the one who had laughed at me for ever finding this at all attractive, the one who had given me the okay to self-pollute, and he suggested I do it in the shower, she had basically jeopardized the whole fate of this series on the 20th of May of this year. Because I suppose she thought that with myself putting these things out, I would be subject to ridicule, and some people would take what I said out of context, and people would think that I actually like this thing, which I don't. Let me make that very clear. I do not support any of this. I condemn it wholeheartedly, and I do believe that it should be suppressed, and I cannot wait until the day until it is wholly suppressed and just annihilated from this earth entirely. But anyhow, she had suggested that I take down the parts that were up. I believe I had the introduction up, parts 1 and 2 up, and I was going to put up part 3 here shortly. But I had told her basically what I was doing, because I had explained it to her that I was putting up this series in which I was detailing how I had kicked the habit of addiction and I was struggling with it and such. And I didn't really give that detailed of an explanation. It was sort of vague. I didn't say exactly what the addiction was. I just sort of left it up to interpretation. When she finally found out what the addiction was, she was very concerned and wanted me to erase the videos off the channel. When I finally explained to her what I was doing, her attitude wasn't really changed at all. And after that exchange, I had felt more ashamed than ever. And I was proposing to quit that day. The day, of course, being the 20th of May, because my mother had indeed been repulsed by myself not only getting involved in this, but actually discussing this at length. And I had told her that this was indeed not an appreciation, but an expose of this community and how it could very much change a person. It's a cautionary tale. And basically I'm just saying, do not do what I have done, else you will end up like me. And so I suppose after that she had to accept the idea, though when part 3 did eventually come out, she was, in fact, just a bit nettled. But anyhow, as this was all taking place, I had realized I was still subscribed to Milkmer's channel. And Milkmer's and I have been friends for years. It's likely that her and I will still be friends. But I had decided at that point, videos were still coming out from that channel. Biographies of these witches and just horrible people were still being made and released, it seemed, at a bi-weekly rate. And though I was indeed on close terms with her, I just decided I can't watch any more of these or even have these things present in my subscriptions. So I decided basically to rather covertly unsubscribe from Milkmer's. And Milkmer's, I am very sorry for that. I hope you understand if you do indeed watch this, but it's just so that I might be able to ward off any carnal feelings further that I had made that decision. Do forgive me for that. I hope that we could still be friends and would continue on to correspond through comments and such, but the content that has been released on your channel, I don't want any part with. It's it would be all the more difficult for me to stay abstinent were I to keep you in my subscription. So I'm very sorry for that. I hope you understand. And shortly after that, as I was still listening to Johnny Keane as I slept, I would occasionally rise early, but mainly just to walk. But it was very rare indeed. And I was working at my mother's shop. We were just trying to open up because we'd been closed for a great while. Not only because of obvious reasons, but also because my father had passed in May, obviously, and my mother was just so aggrieved by this that she just decided to have a year off and was just going to stay away from the shop and just try and heal herself of this terrible loss. Very understandable. But we were just starting to reorganize the shop and such. And I was very much abstinent through that time, through this 10 days, and was just feeling so great because I wasn't giving in to lust at all. When, all of a sudden, God had introduced temptation into my life. And instead of harming my right hand, the one that I use for creation, he started to harm my left hand, the one I had used for self-pollution. In sort of an effort to say, oh, so you think you can resist the urge entirely and such. Well, if that's the case, if you're not doing this anymore, then perhaps you don't need your hand. Perhaps maybe I could take this one instead of the one that you use primarily for your own creation. How would you feel then? You know, if you don't want to keep doing this, then why do you need this hand anymore? I was basically sort of being prompted to get back into it, even though I was very determined to get out of it. And luckily, I was able to stave off of it for a while, and my left hand wasn't harmed really in any way, other than maybe I bumped it or something or other. And as I said, maybe a shelf from a bookcase had fallen on it. But anyhow, I had held out for a few more days until I believe this was on the 23rd or 4th of May. No, 23rd. And I was at my grandmother's house. And you must remember, most of my family are very devout Catholics. I was looking through her cabinets because it was my uncle's birthday, and there was a bear in there that she had acquired in 2006, and which if you squeezed its belly, it had basically sung "Happy Birthday" and such. The thing still worked, even though it was 15 years old, and so we would press that when it was anyone's birthday, and we were deciding to basically have it sing happy birthday to him. And I had retrieved the bear, no problem. But I noticed that there was something else in the cabinet. There was, indeed, a bottle of holy water. Holy water. I say that in inverted commas. That I decided to retrieve as well. And because I have this thing where I like to basically have my grandmother talk about the good old days, about her time, her life, with all of her children and grandchildren and all this. And I like to record that on my phone so that I have an archive of the family history, because one day I would like to write it down so that it won't be lost to time. And so I basically ask her all sorts of questions of varying type. And so stupid me decides to ask her about this holy water and inquires why it is that she has it. And she gave her explanation for it. It wards off demons and such, supposedly, and basically makes one more holy than they were without it and such, and basically is sort of a talisman, in a sense. And I had asked, for some reason, if you could drink this stuff, and she had known a child, or she had heard about a child who had drank some holy water, and the mother of this child was very concerned about it, and she had actually spoken to the clergyman, the priest, and it said, what happens if my son has drunk this holy water? And the priest said, well, he'll just be very holy. And so that was it, basically. That was our discussion about holy water. And then we just decided to have cake and eat it too, and, carry out the proceedings of my uncle's birthday. And then we left that day, very late. And I was still very much abstaining, but for a reason that I perceived at the time to be unknowable, I had decided just to look around YouTube to see what new sorts of videos were up at the time. I had filtered the search results and such, and had found something that was utterly surprising to me, and which basically had incited myself to lust again. And that was a full-length stuffing video from Hello XLA, which was uploaded to YouTube by a felonious reposter in all of its 28 or 29, or it was basically a half hour, all of its minutes, all of its half hour of glory, I suppose. And this basically had caused me to break my stint once again, because I had said, oh my God! I thought I would never get to see a full-length video of this woman, though she was indeed very volatile and just perfectly unbearable, and just a bitch all around. Nevertheless, here was a full-length video, even though I had declared so long ago that I could never have that. And I felt just so utterly satisfied and fulfilled with having seen this. And it was late at night. I usually watch these videos early in the morning and go to bed with the idea that I would rise very early in order to watch and self-pollute to these videos. So I just decided to do that. And because I knew what type of a person Hello XLA had been, and how she was very unforgiving of anybody who had reposted her content, I knew that this video would be gone in a very short amount of time. And so I had to watch it quickly. And it decided, perhaps, I cannot believe that I decided to do this, but I had decided to try and download this video myself so that I might be able to have a copy of it for however long. And as soon as I had tried to do this, every single website on which I had tried to download this video had denied me the ability to do it. I'm not sure if it was because the file was not of the type to where you could convert it, or whatever the case was, but other people who had seen this had experienced similar problems. And so I just decided to just watch the video anyway, knowing that within a short amount of time it would be gone from the face of the internet. And so that next morning, I am cold. I'm very cold when I try to self-pollute. It's almost as if, as I said, God is preventing me from doing this, even though temptation had come my way. And I noticed in the comments of this video, they had no idea who this person was. Because it's a very common thing that since re-uploads are so very prevalent in the community, it's a very common thing for most people to ask who these people are so that they might be able to trace them to their original website of origin and be able to continue to watch and self-pollute to their videos unto eternity. And this has been going on for many years, probably since the origin of the community itself. And so was the case here. And I had answered a few of these questions that people had posed in the past, because I suppose I was very well versed in StufferDB and just in everything that had to do with this community. I just can't believe I used to do all this. So when somebody finally posed the question as to who this person was in this video, I had basically typed out this. I had said, and I quote, "Hello XLer, a mangy Reddit user." Because that's what she was. She was just a perfectly mangy scoundrel of a human being that there's no other accurate description I could possibly give her. She's just a monster. But even though everything in the world was preventing me from doing so, I had decided to brave the cold and went ahead and self-polluted to a video anyhow. And the thing was a half hour long, as I had said, and in watching it, I noticed that I had difficulty trying to get hard, if you will. And I believe this is because, as I said, everything in heaven or earth was trying to prevent me from doing this because I was doing so well that I just could not find myself being able to achieve an erection at all. And here is what I did. Yes, this is what I did that I might be able to get a thrill from this video. And I will give a description of the video itself here, once I tell you what I did. Since I knew that Catholicism had begat sex perversion, I decided to retrieve a Catholic Bible that it might be able to aid me in my arousal. And what do you know? It helped me greatly. And as I watched this video, quite a lot of unusual stuff was going on. Hello Excella, had broken a nail in her video, which I perceived to be punishment from God from having done this. She was, I suppose, eating cake and such, and I guess through all this had broken a nail, a false nail. And shortly after this, she restores her nail to its proper state, which I basically presume to be the wiles of the devil working for her. And I suppose as she was eating the cake, she was saying, I'm going to throw up, even just thinking about eating another bite of this. And even though she said she was going to make sick, she proceeded to shovel in another bite of the bloody cake. And then the nail fell off again, the fingernail fell off again. And she was drinking fizzy throughout all of this. And fizzy went down the wrong chute constantly, which made this video all the more strange. And I suppose when all of this was done, I had expected some or another gurgle to emanate from her very distended stomach. You must remember that she bloats considerably, perhaps even more than any of these people that I have seen up till this point. So it would be a matter of course that she would indeed experience quite a lot of noise emanating from her abdomen. Evidently there was none, because the entirety of the video had her, I suppose, stuffing herself and listening to some very just horrible rap music, almost like that, what's his name, that green-eyed boy that I had discussed in that one Snackin' story, the Confidence Man. Just very awful rap music, and it basically cancelled out any other sound and such. But nevertheless, I had managed to come to this video, the first time in which I had ever climaxed to this particular personage, because I guess the way she was rubbing her distended stomach was indeed very sexual indeed, and somehow that had done it for me. And after that, I was just so ashamed. It's an endless cycle of myself being ashamed. Because just when you think that you've kicked this addiction, in a very short time, it comes back and just conquers you and just has you forever enslaved and just forever seeking to pleasure yourself interminably until you just feel ever more ashamed of what you're doing. It's just horrible, unendurable. And so on the 24th of May, I was back at it yet again. And in order that I might be able to find solace from myself having just utterly humiliating myself through the video of Hello Excella, I decided to consult the videos of Johnny Keane once more. And I forget which videos these are, but the ones that I saw, he was, I suppose, going through the Bible and such, and mentioned Psalm 6. And when he mentioned this, I went ahead and picked up my King James Bible to read Psalm 6. And I will go ahead and read Psalm 6 to you here right now, so that you might get an idea of what I was confronted with. So it goes like this. Psalm 6. O Lord, rebuke me not in thine anger, neither chasten me in thy hot displeasure. Have mercy upon me, O Lord, for I am weak. O Lord, heal me, for my bones are vexed. My soul is also sore vexed. But thou, O Lord, how long? Return, O Lord, deliver my soul. O save me for thy mercy's sake. For in death there is no remembrance of thee. In the grave who shall give thee thanks? I am weary with my groaning. All the night make I the bed to swim. I water my couch with my tears. Mine eye is consumed because of grief. It waxeth old because of all mine enemies. Depart from me, all ye workers of iniquity, for the Lord hath heard the voice of my weeping. The Lord hath heard my supplication. The Lord will receive my prayer. Let all mine enemies be ashamed and sore vexed. Let them return and be ashamed suddenly. And I read that in the King James Version, and that basically summed up how I felt about all this. And I decided to grab my Catholic version and compare the two to see just how they stacked up. You must remember, I was still under the impression that Catholicism begat sex perversion, so I just wanted to see how both of them sounded. So this is Psalm 6 in the Revised Standard Version, Catholic edition. O Lord, rebuke me not in thy anger, nor chasten me in thy wrath. Be gracious to me, O Lord, for I am languishing. O Lord, heal me, for my bones are troubled. My soul also is sorely troubled. But thou, O Lord, how long? Turn, O Lord, save my life. Deliver me for the sake of thy steadfast love. For in death there is no remembrance of thee. In Sheol who can give thee praise? I am weary with my moaning. Every night I flood my bed with tears. I drench my couch with my weeping. My eye wastes away because of grief. It grows weak because of all my foes. Depart from me, all you workers of evil, for the Lord has heard the sound of my weeping. The Lord has heard my supplication. The Lord accepts my prayer. All my enemies shall be ashamed and sorely troubled. They shall turn back and be put to shame in a moment. And you may notice that these two versions do sound very similar to each other, even though there may be a few words here or there that are a bit off in terms of translation and such. But essentially, that comforted me to an astonishing degree. And then I read Psalm 10, because I believe Johnny Keenan mentioned it as sort of a punishment, or rebuke rather, for Hello XLer for having put out this video. And I shall read Psalm 10 from the King James Version and then from the Catholic Version, just so you know what it is I'm talking about. So here's the King James. Why standest thou afar off, O Lord? Why hidest thou thyself in times of trouble? The wicked in his pride doth persecute the poor. Let them be taken in the devices that they have imagined. For the wicked boasteth of his heart's desire, and blesseth the covetousness whom the Lord abhorreth. The wicked, through the pride of his countenance, will not seek after God. God is not in all his thoughts. His ways are always grievous. Thy judgments are far above out of his sight. As for all his enemies, he puffeth at them. He hath said in his heart, I shall not be moved, for I shall never be in adversity. His mouth is full of cursing and deceit and fraud. Under his tongue is mischief and vanity. He sitteth in the lurking places of the villages. In the secret places doth he murder the innocent. His eyes are privily set against the poor. He lieth in wait secretly as a lion in his den. He lieth in wait to catch the poor. He doth catch the poor when he draweth him into his net. He croucheth and humbleth himself, that the poor may fall by his strong ones. He hath said in his heart, God hath forgotten. He hideth his face. He will never see it. Arise, O Lord, O God, lift up thine hand, forget not the humble. Wherefore doth the wicked contemn God? He hath said in his heart, Thou wilt not require it. Thou hast seen it, for thou beholdest mischief and spite, to requite it with thy hand. The poor committeth himself unto thee, thou art the helper of the fatherless. Break thou the arm of the wicked and the evil man, seek out his wickedness till thou find none. The Lord is king for ever and ever, the heathen are perished out of his land. Lord, thou hast heard the desire of the humble, thou wilt prepare their heart, thou wilt cause thine ear to hear, to judge the fatherless and the oppressed, that the man of the earth may no more oppress. So that's the King James Version. You can see very well that is a call to the Lord to punish the sinners, of which Hello is a quintessential example. Now here's the Catholic version of Psalm 10. Why dost thou stand afar, O Lord? Why dost thou hide thyself in times of trouble? In arrogance the wicked hotly pursue the poor. Let them be caught in the schemes which they have devised. For the wicked boasts of the desires of his heart, and the man greedy for gain curses and renounces the Lord. In the pride of his countenance the wicked does not seek him. All his thoughts are, There is no God. His ways prosper at all times. Thy judgments are on high, out of his sight. As for all his foes, he puffs at them. He thinks in his heart, I shall not be moved. Throughout all generations I shall not meet adversity. His mouth is filled with cursing and deceit and oppression. Under his tongue are mischief and iniquity. He sits in ambush in the villages. In hiding places he murders the innocent. His eyes stealthily watch the hapless. He lurks in secret like a lion in his covert. He lurks that he may seize the poor. He seizes the poor when he draws him into his net. The hapless is crushed, sinks down, and falls by his might. He thinks in his heart, God has forgotten, he has hidden his face, he will never see it. Arise, O Lord, O God, lift up thy hand, forget not the afflicted. Why does the wicked renounce God, and say in his heart, Thou wilt not call to account? Thou dost see, yea, thou dost note trouble and vexation, that thou mayest take it into thy hands. The hapless commits himself to thee. Thou hast been the helper of the fatherless. Break thou the arm of the wicked and evildoer. Seek out his wickedness till thou find none. The Lord is king for ever and ever. The nation shall perish from his land. O Lord, thou wilt hear the desire of the meek. Thou wilt strengthen thy heart. Thou wilt incline thy ear to do justice to the fatherless and the oppressed, so that man who is of the earth may strike terror no more. That was from the Catholic version. And once again, you can see that they are similar in some respects, and I was just wondering why it was, even though in my heart it was wrong to take anything in the Catholic Bible as being the true Word of God. I began to ponder why it was that, they seemed to basically to say the same thing, and how they really seemed to me to be good enough punishments and chastisements for Hello Excella. And then Johnny had mentioned a passage in Galatians, and I believe that is chapter 6, verse 8. I will read from the King James Version. Here we are. For he that soweth to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption, but he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting. And that verse had basically summed up how I should behave. I should indeed depart from the flesh, that I might be able to achieve everlasting life and be clean of this. But it was just so difficult to do. But this indeed assured me that I could do it, however difficult it might be. And then as I had been sort of refreshed and renewed by this passage, I sort of began to ponder why YouTube even allowed this conduct in the first place. Why it was that for all of these years, and through all the changing of hands that the website has had, through all of the stringent statutes that have been implemented over the years, how is it that still this pornography is allowed and seems to be undetected on the website? And then I remembered back to Revelation 13 and how everyone had worshipped the beast back in March, and how basically its influence would continue to proliferate to every kindred, tongue, and nation. And it was basically the plan of the beast. It was the beginning of the last days in regards to online.
And the readings I had encountered in the Catholic Bible seemed other forms of temptation in disguise.
And having realized this, I had vowed to stop before this very installment was released. And with that, the urge to self-pollute had decreased with the coldness of the early mornings. And I just started to not engage in this practice. Rather, I would just walk and carry out my daily duties without feeling the need to do so. And within, I suppose, 3 or 4 days after having climaxed to that video by Hello Exceller, it is removed off the face of the website without a trace. And when I noticed this, I just thought that everything was just getting better and better. You know, things were on the up and up. The activity of a Secret Belly stuffer was far less frequent than it was, so really there was no point in me continuing to follow her. And there was a rise in rather uninteresting re-uploads, and then there was a fall in original creators, so there was all the more reason to leave. And though I was still struggling to kick the habit, I found it even more easier to do so. I realized that yes, you can kick this. Indeed, it is entirely possible to wholly purge this of your life. And then I came across a user by the name of FV, who basically was the Italian Cassie B. If you recall who Cassie B is, she's the one to whom I first ejaculated in part 2, and the one who basically incited me to self-pollute and made me realize just what it was that had me fascinated with this whole thing. So I viewed her videos, I suppose, on and off, and I started to feel nothing after having climaxed more frequently. So you could easily tell that there's a decline in not only the impetus to self-pollute, but also the thrill itself was reduced. And so I was on my way out, you can see. And during this time, Milkmers, because she had known that I was leaving this damned community, she had asked if it was all right for her to edit out the comment I had made for the video that she had done on Amy. I had the comment I did make saved somewhere, but I couldn't find it in time for the act in which it was brought up, but I will instead read it here, because I did in fact find it. Basically what I said is, Amy is in a class with herself, unparalleled in the field, the best without question, and the one about which most men are inclined to fantasize. So, and I had said basically, look, the video's already up. It's not going to make any difference anyhow, really, even though I am leaving it, and you don't have to delete it if you don't want to. It's entirely up to you. And so I left it at that. And that video is not deleted to this day. I obviously left a link in the description to it on part 7. So yeah. And then even more stuff was signaling me to leave. For instance, Catholic for Rednecks had returned to YouTube officially because he had had complications and such, and was therefore posting on his separate account, Catholic Down South, but is now back on his official YouTube page, Catholic for Rednecks. And because I was basically renouncing the Catholic faith, I watched his videos mainly for, I suppose, comedic purposes. I was trying to get a laugh out of them, and they often worked, in my opinion. And during this time I also discovered somebody by the name of Eli Yoda, who was, I suppose, a former Amish man, and basically was preaching to the public, what the Bible really says and such, going through it book by book, and just, being an all-around great Christian. And also he would have people give their testimonies as to how they left the Amish and such and all this, and I very much liked his videos. And so I thought I was easily on the way out. Also during this time, someone even asked Milkmers in one of her videos, I believe it was the video that she had done on LMBB, that video has since been deleted, but it was in one of those videos, and somebody had asked Milkmers if she were into this sort of thing. And because she had told me, when I had released the introduction, that she was not at all, I had basically told this inquirer the truth. I said, myself having been a friend of Milkmers for many years, know for a fact that she opposes to this deviltry wholeheartedly. And I think shortly after that, the video was deleted. And the dancer herself was even more inactive. She had gone about 3 weeks with not putting up a video, which meant to me at the time, she basically had realized what was going on. And so was desisting from this at large, that she might not be able to run into any of these characters, and that she had heeded my warning. Even though, from her letter, it seemed as though that she was fairly indifferent to the matter. And so I basically thought everything was going up miles, and that I was just on my way out. However, with this decline and potential fall of the community, there are occasional rises in certain aspects of it. Like, for instance, the videos of Be Girl, and Lilac Lizard. They have both returned to YouTube during this time, and it basically cultivated a following and such once they had indeed returned. I said, oh no. Bloody hell. Did they have to return at this time? Right when I was getting out of it, they had to return. Oh God, I'm so sorry for this. But right when I was getting out of this thing, right when this community was seeming to utterly destroy itself, this happened. And this caused me to subscribe to these two people and to the scant few new creators that were still operating. And I would still self-pollute And it got to the point where I started to do this daily. And what do you know? After having not felt anything for about a week and a half, I started feeling again. And the task of trying to kick this awful habit entirely had become all the more difficult.